What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 12 of 45 Minutes of Noise. I am your host, slash your boy, Chris Pugh, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend and Mr. Cynical himself, Samuel Lewis, on a Wednesday evening for a change. How are we, sir?
We are well. We are well. How are yourself, sir?
Yeah, man, it's weird to be recording this in the dark, isn't it? And not like in the middle of the day on a weekend.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like it, Chris. Just
Nah.
this is my disassociation time you chipping into here. I
Yeah.
was scheduled to be staring at a wall right now.
Or like any other form of talking about music, wall staring included.
Absolutely. If I could do this a podcast by osmosis, you know what I mean? But I'm actually very much looking forward to discussing these two albums.
Yeah, yeah, we've got something really nice on today. Like, I'm quite sure we're gonna have some disagreements, which is always interesting. And
God, I hope not. No. Oh, Chris. I'm out. I'm done. Do it on your own.
I'm very certain we're gonna have some disagreements, which is always
Uh,
interesting. And there is actually quite a nice, juicy piece of news regarding one of the albums that we're reviewing, actually. So I think we've got room for a good one today. Just to give you a heads up on what's on today's show, we've got reviews on New A Day to Remember record, and we've got reviews on the new Whitechapel album as well. Very, very nice. Before we get into the show, we should tell you how you can support us. The best way to do that is by liking slash subscribing on YouTube or whichever podcast service you use to watch slash listen to us. You can follow us on X at Noise Podcast, as well as following the Noise platform in general at Noise UK on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You should head to noise.co.uk for all your latest news, album reviews, features, and interviews. Sam, so we get into the show. Let's move on to something that I'm fairly confident, Sam, we're going to agree on. Whitechapel,
probably.
hymns in Dissonance. This is out on March 7th via Metal Blade Records. It's the band's ninth studio offering and the follow up to 2021's Kin. If you're in a good mood, Sam, how about I just withdraw that good mood from you? For some reason, I associate Whitechapel as a modern deathcore band, but the truth is that that's just not true.
No, been around for
Then
ages.
they're nearly 2 decades into their career. I hate that. They're knocking on. I think they're about 18, 17 years into their tenure now. I hate it.
Yeah, it's not
You know,
great.
I would have. We're not. If I said Whitechapel, I would put them in the kind of the modern deathcore brand. When really now that is Brand of Sacrifice, that is Mental Cruelty, and that is Lorna Shore. And Whitechapel now, God, legacy death metal deathcore band. Is that 20 years
Yeah,
legacy
I guess
deathcore
so.
band?
I guess so.
Um, Throughout that time, though, like Whitechapel had been like a vitally important and exceptional deathcore band, and they're 100% front runners of the genre. Um,
Mm.
I'm a big fan of how on the Valley and Kin they kind of push their sound to encompass something grander and more melodic. We actually on our first terrible, please don't go back and listen to it podcast, sound check. We reviewed 2016's Mark of the Blade.
Yes, I
And
remember. I enjoyed it.
if I remember correctly, we said that we really enjoyed it, but I think we also said this is pretty much all they're ever going to do, isn't it? And
Mm.
the Valet and Kin very much opposed that and proved us wrong. And they did try to create something more expansive, and they definitely used Phil Bowerman's voice in a way that I didn't think would be possible when I was listening when I first heard Mark of the Blade in 2016. And what I would then say, Sam, as we get into this record, if you love old school Whitechapel and you were hoping there would be a moment in time where Whitechapel just do the thing they did in 2015, let me tell you, you've got a great time coming your way on March 7th, have you not, Sam?
Yeah, they not only do the thing that they did in 2015, they do the thing that might one day summon the presence of Satan by the sounds of this.
Yeah,
This
it's good.
is
It's good.
it bloody hell. Um, Now I don't know if bands actually do this. Like you know how like a wrestler cuts a promo and then the wrestler's opposition appears like a half an hour later and cuts a reverse promo. Do you think
Yeah.
Whitechapel heard Lorna Shore and were like, all right, then?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's some of this where there's some of this near the end of some of these songs where they're like, oh, okay, they're the heaviest, got it, cool. It just feels a little bit like that, and I don't know if bands operate like that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Um, Prisoner 666 as an open is just
Oh my God.
hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my
It's
God.
just hilarious. But I want to talk about hymns in dissonance
Oh,
because the
the
first
lead single.
breakdown
Yeah.
is terrifying, but the second one is just like when it stops and he starts to change his voice. It did feel just feel a little bit Lorna Shorey, just a little bit to the Hellfire, a little bit. And the thing is can you say, oh, the first, you know, Whitechapel have been doing that for ages, and they have, but not like this, not this recently. And it feels like they were really, really pushing the envelope out from an extremity standpoint, and it just doesn't stop. There is like there's a touch of melody in Nothing Is Coming for Any of Us. And you could argue that Mammoth God is vaguely melodic at times because it reminds you of a metalcore song for like 30 seconds. The
Yeah,
rest
yeah.
of it is that scene from American History X where he stamps that guy's head into the curb. That is it for the rest of the record.
Yeah.
Um, Diabolical Slumber is just ridiculous. I can't imagine. Um, this has got the highest stick it on a speaker approval rating for a group of metalheads that have never heard it before. You know, like when you imagine you're in a group of friends that all listen to metal and none of them have heard this record, and you just choose a random song off this record. The chance that that song will go down well to that group of people is like -1,000. It's like 240 to 1 odds on. You know, it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
ridiculous. It's a guarantee slam dunk because it's like, do you like breakdowns? Yeah, I like. Do you like just like heavy scream? Yeah, I really do. You know, frenetic thrash metal, fantastic. Well, there you go for 40 minutes because it does nothing else, and you can't even criticize. Well, that's all they do. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
at all. This is a deathcore album from a deathcore band, and it's brilliant deathcore. Like, shut up. It's exactly what you want it to be. It's exactly if you're a Whitechapel fan going about your day, you've got a great time ahead of you. And if you're an extreme metal fan, even people like you and I that would describe as massively extreme metal fans, this is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant from
It is
start to
brilliant, this
finish.
album. It is brilliant.
It really, really, really is. The just the brutality and the breakneck, the changes of tempo. Visceral Wretch, the end of which is truly unsettling, like legitimately unsettling. Hate Cult Ritual, and the thing is, like, I'm the sort of person that giggle at those sort of titles, but I listen to the song and I'm like, what else would you call it though? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like it's perfectly titled. The fight. My favorite so far is Bedlam. Because of the groove of Bedlam is
Oh, the
just
slow tempo, it's sick. Oh,
yeah,
the slow tempo is sick on
it's just
Bedlam, yeah.
perfect. Just perfect. It's head groove, it's speaker friendly. Whack it on and stab through. We've got a few friends that would just adore this. Um I, I've got no real avenue to criticize this because within the realms of what it is from this band, this is pretty much everything you would want down to the last China. Like it is just perfect in every single way for this genre, for this band, and at this stage of this band's career. The energy and the brutality and the freneticism and the tempo changes and the breakdowns. It's it's like an A star deathcore record. It does nothing it doesn't do, and it even touches on just enough melody for me to be like, oh, a little bit of color, a little bit of shading around the edges.
Mm.
Like, there's bits in this like Mammoth God. I'm like, oh, it's like some brilliant guitar work at the end of this. I love the chorus on this, and that's a bit black metal there. And then at the end, it's like, what a vocal performance on Nothing Is Coming for Any of Us. Lord have mercy, real melody, lovely change of pace. That's all I need. That's
Yeah.
all I need, and it just does enough to sort of head back to its deathcore roots. Um, as good an extreme metal album as you're likely to hear all year because it's just like this is like this is like for using a teacher term. This is like a model example deathcore record. This is the one you'd
Yeah.
put on the whiteboard and be like, this is what deathcore sounds like. This is
Yeah.
what this genre is. It is because it hits every trope perfectly. It's as good as it gets for the genre. Fair play to Whitechapel. Genuinely hats off.
Man, I knew this record was going to be great about 10 seconds in.
Oh yeah.
Because on Prisoner 666, that slow picked ominous riff to open, that's classic deathcore. That is, it sounds so good. There's a mosh call from Phil Bowerman when he screams, "I bear the number 666." It's it's the most absurd thing. Like, just imagine the goddamn crowd, Sam. And
Oh,
they use that classic Whitechapel trope of exploding into an instrumental and then returning to the verse. On the return, there's a riff from Zach Householder. It just sits underneath the sound, and honestly, on like the third verse, he's just underneath the sound. The riff that he's doing, it sounds like a cheese grater on barbed wire, man. It's the most heinous, horrendous sound. It's disgusting. And then God, the breakdown at the end of the song is just unbelievable. You've kind of mentioned yourself a lot about hate cult ritual and bedlam. I think that bedlam, like I actually wrote the note here, it's at this point it's almost like the record's in competition with itself to sound as brutal as possible. Because the
yes.
climax of that song, where Bowersman's like kind of growling, "You'll never be reborn," man. It's just caveman bloodletting. It's just honestly, it's just every man for himself. 2,000 people on the battlefield. But at the same time, I also do want to make clear that there's some real like nice complexity to this album, as well as opposed to just like low tone beat down riffs. You mentioned nothing is coming for any of us, mate. I literally thought of you while it was happening. The
Oh.
harmonized riffs on the middle eight.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
I
Just
thought,
beautiful
oh
guitar
God,
work.
Sam's going to be absolutely loving this, and obviously, and then it kind of slowly blends back into Phil's return, with like vocal return. It's so good. There's an unbelievable solo that breaks out as well, isn't it, man? But like the
Yes.
harmonized solos on the middle eight, I was like, man, this is like it's like Machine Head on the Blackening stuff. Like,
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
I'm not saying in terms of length, or I'm not saying the record as a whole is Machine Head the Blackening,
It's just
but
reminiscent of, I get it.
that particular moment, man, that is like Machine Head on the Blackening level complex writing. That is absolutely brilliant. I think that it's really quite stunning that Whitechapel have done this, because I need to really go back and listen to their other records. But man, this really strikes me as what's going to be undeniably one of their best. And I'm going to go back and listen to the rest before I say it is their best album. But if it isn't, then it's definitely going to be in the top three or two. Because I think this is like exceptional. I do.
Completely agree. I completely agree. It's as good as it gets from a deathcore perspective. It's as good as it gets an extreme metal album. It's as good as it gets for a band that's in their second decade. It's as good as it gets across the board. Beautifully mixed, brilliantly put together. Um, Contains just enough complexity to keep an old prog metal fan like me sort of interested, as well as like all the brutality and mosh calls that you would possibly want. It's going to translate to a new deathcore audience as well as the classic fans. It's going to cast a wide swathe across the extreme metal circles. It's as good as I've heard them for a very long time. It's an excellent record.
Best thing I'll say as we close off. It's better than any The Art Is Murder album I've heard since Holy War.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's
That,
probably fair.
I get the old recency bias that I was talking about last week, but that I'm actually really confident in saying.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think that's too far off. It's really great. It's really good, man.
That's where we're going to leave this episode of 45 minutes of noise. We are going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Just looking at the upcoming release schedule here, we should be able to get our hands on new Cradle of the Filth and Spirit World as well. So that's what we're going to be aiming to be talking about in 2 weeks' time. Regardless whether or not we get those records, we will be back in 2 weeks' time discussing something at the very least. Perhaps the incredible sales of A Day to Remember's new album, where Sam bought 49,000 copies, is a possibility.
Drop them off all of them in your garden.
Well, thank you for listening to the episode. A reminder: the best way to support us is by liking slash following on YouTube or whichever podcast service you're using to watch slash listen. You can follow us on on X. Sorry, still tempted to call it Twitter all the time. You can follow us on X at Noise Podcast. You should go to noise.co.uk for all your latest news, album reviews, features, and interviews. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for listening. Keep it heavy. Bye.